this is Chris with OverClockersClub, back again with another cool case. This one is from Phanteks. This case is an amazing little case. It's a mid-tower case. It's the P400 tempered glass edition. I don't know how well you can see the text down there. There are a couple different versions of this P400. There's even a P300, but this one here is sort of like the top of the line. It has the tempered glass side panel, and it has some other real cool features. So let me get the cardboard and styrofoam here off of it and get the plastic peeled off, and we can start taking a look at it in a little more detail. All right, now we've got the case out of the box. We're ready to sort of go over the exterior features. But first, I wanted to say that I looked at an N-Through Primo case a few years ago, and I liked it so much I made it my official test case for all of my CPU cooling air and liquid coolers. So that's how much I like that case. Now, this one here, this is part of the Eclipse series, and there are actually three cases. There's the P300, the P400, and the P400S, and the S has some extra sound deadening, and I'll show you that here in a little bit on some of these panels. And this one actually has the side glass panel. Now over here on my trusty laptop, so I don't miss any of the features here, I want to walk through them carefully with you. Another thing that this particular P400S tempered glass edition has is that it's already set up to be user-friendly with the Asus Aura Sync, the MSI Mystic Light Sync, and Gigabyte RGB Fusion. So those are the RGB lighting controllers or lighting systems, and this case is user-friendly for those. Now, as we go over the outside of the case, you can see we have a solid steel panel here on this side. We have a nice matte black finish. On this side, of course, we have the solid glass panel. It does appear to be smoked slightly, so there's a little bit of a tinting to it. Now we look at the front of the case, and it's all solid. We don't have any glass panels. We don't have any obvious filter sections. But what we do have across the top here is this red trim, and I do love the red and black color combination. But underneath here we have some little push buttons for the lighting and fan control. So this particular version of this series has a 3-speed fan controller also built in with the case. Now we look at the top of the case, and what I like, we have these two little covers here, and they have the sound deadening mat already attached, and actually we also have 4 tiny little magnets that help secure it. So once it sort of clicks into position, and there's a little depressed area that fits the shape of these covers, so they fit right in there. So the top is perfectly smooth. The panels fit flush. But if we look at the top of the case here, what we have, you can see, is a very large vented section, and we have mounting provisions for 120 or 140 millimeter fans. So if you want to just put fans or a liquid cooled radiator at the top, we do have that option. And if you don't want to go with any fans and you want to go for a totally quiet system, then you can put these little panels back on there, cover that up, and it gives it a real nice sleek look. Now the whole top is flat, but we do have the power button here in the center, and then we have 2 USB 3.0 ports. We don't have any USB 2.0 ports. We have a microphone and headphone jack here off to the side also. So we have a very clean interface across the top. I do like the way the USB ports are on the top like that. The ones that stick out the front are fine, but a lot of times if you have a really long USB flash drive, I'm always worried that when you walk by, somebody's leg or knee is going to hit that and bend it over. So when they are mounted on the top, I actually like them a little better that way. Now we look at the rear of the case, and we have our expansion slots right here. We have 7 slots, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And we have the bottom opening here for the power supply. And the top we have a 120 millimeter rear exhaust fan. It is slotted here so that the fan can move up and down, so that if we have a graphics card that's a little thicker, we can move the fan out of the way, or if we have a radiator at the top, we can drop the fan down a little bit. So we have a couple of options in that regard. And the other real cool thing here, and I'll walk around the front to show you, that I really like, is the way this front panel pops right off. It actually has some little, it's almost like a ball and socket, these little detents here this thing just pops right on. You don't feel like you're going to break it. You don't have a bunch of plastic tabs that you have to push on. This thing just snaps right on and snaps right off. And we do have the 120 millimeter included fan. And here's the LED light bar across the bottom, and we'll look at that when we get the case all powered up. The other cool thing about this, on the inside we do have the sound deadening insert here to keep the fan noise down, keep case noise down. We have a small removable filter panel on the bottom for the bottom intake, and we have another small little removable filter panel at the top, and that is a really nice idea there, a really nice design. Many cases that have front fans, they'll have venting, but they won't have any way to filter the air, so you're bringing in all the dust and just blowing it right in across your components. So this here is a really big plus, and there's actually a small lens right here that will filter that light as it comes through the front there, so we should have a lighting effect that pushes down on the ground. So we'll get the power to the case a little later, and we can see that lighting effect. Now we'll take a look at the bottom of the case. Let me take these panels off so they don't fall off. We look at the bottom of the case, and you'll see we have a removable filter section here. The rest of this is all enclosed. We have a rubber inserts there at the four corners for the feet. So there should be a little tab here, yep. You pull on this and your filter panel comes out for the bottom, and that's to filter the air that's being drawn into your power supply from the bottom. And now we'll go ahead and take the panels off. Actually, we already have the front panel off. We'll go ahead and pop it off again. But we'll look inside the case here. Let's get the first panel off this side. This is the back panel. This is a solid metal panel. And this one, the entire surface here is covered with the sound deadening material, so that goes a long way towards keeping case noise down. And then we have the glass panel here, and we will pop it off also. There are 4 fasteners here that hold that on. Oh, something else I wanted to point out. Big thing that I really like with cases is when the manufacturers put these retained fasteners on there, so that when you unscrew them, they don't fall, hit the floor, and roll underneath the desk or the cabinet or out of sight. They're always retained to the panel. So I love that when manufacturers do that. We'll get these 4 off here. Now with any glass panel, and this is more of a trend now I'm seeing with cases, they're all going to the glass front and or side panels. But what I always, I'm always a little careful, a little paranoid when you take these off, because if it's a metal panel on the side like you used to see for years, or a plastic side panel, you drop one of those, worst that's going to happen, you're going to make some noise. You might ding up the corner. But these glass panels, they're tempered, so they're pretty strong, but I'm always a little extra careful to make sure that these things don't fall off unexpectedly. Now this does have a black, a little hard to see, but it looks like a black painted on trim piece here, or actually trim that's part of the glass. So set that off to the side, and we will take a look inside the case. Actually, there are little rubber grommets here that look like they're supposed to stay with the fasteners on the case. So they actually look like they stuck a little bit here for the first time. But these are little, what these are little rubber isolators. They're kind of hard to see, but they fit over the stud there, and they kind of stuck with you. I think the first time you take them off, they should be okay. So, first thing I see when I look inside that I really like, and I'm a big fan of the red and black theme. I like the motherboards that have the red and black. They would look really nice in this case. But we have a glossy power supply cover. It is vented across the top there. You can see for airflow into your power supply. And on this side, we'll look at the back here. Your power supply goes here, and we have a couple of hard drive trays here for your 3.5-inch drives. Over here we also have a hardware box. We can get that out. We'll look through it here in a moment. Get this tie out of there. Now the other thing you'll notice right away, this case does not have any optical drives, and that's another thing I'm starting to see the trend. The optical drives are just slowly being phased out. Now that makes for a really nice open area here. We don't have the usual optical drive bays that are sort of stuck up here at the top. So we have plenty of room. In fact, in the front you can go up to a 360 millimeter radiator, and we have all of these mounting provisions for additional fans. And actually there's a panel, and I'll pop that off here a little later. There's a panel here in the front for a radiator. Right now as it sits, you can't get a 360 millimeter radiator in there, but this panel right here comes off, which allows clearance there to get the radiator in the front. Now looking at the back plane, we have some rubber grommets right here to help hide your cables when you run those for cable management. And I already mentioned we've got a couple of hard drive trays here. They have screw holes for mounting a solid state drive if you want to go that route. And we also have two little detachable hard drive trays right here. Looks like these just pop up. Yep, these are for solid state drives. Very convenient. They mount right on the back of the motherboard tray. And those just pop in. I really like that. You don't have to use any screws or fasteners. And we have our connection here for the RGB controller, which again, as soon as we get this thing powered up, you can see. And we also, across the back here, we have these little red pieces. You can mount solid state drives across the back here also, so we have some additional mounting provisions for that. The next thing we'll do is put this back together, and we'll get the motherboard in so we can get some power to it and see what everything looks like. Before I do the motherboard installation, I almost forgot to go through the hardware box, so I got that open. The first thing you see is a plastic bag. You got some zip ties in there, some miscellaneous motherboard installation screws, and some other fasteners in there. So that's pretty standard. We have this other bag, and inside of it we have these little magnetized filters, and actually these are meant to go on top. So if you decide that you don't want to use the sound deadening panels, you can just put these two little magnetic filter strips across the top, and those look real nice, and since they're magnetic they easily come right off. So that's one thing that's in there, nice little feature. The other thing we have in this package is our really cool RGB strip, and this has some little magnets already embedded. Now I'll probably have to experiment a little bit when I get the motherboard in there and get this thing powered up, but you know, to see where this thing looks best. But it will stick anywhere you've got anything metal, so you can put it there. We can put it up across the top here or in the back, and it has the connection socket there, and then it looks like an extension plug, so you could put more than one of these in there if you wanted. A couple other things I also forgot to mention. Across the back here, there's actually a bracket kit that you can buy. It's not included, it is optional, but you can buy that kit, and that kit will allow you to put more hard drives here on this side. And I also talked about this panel here. When it's removed, actually the hard drive tray that is back here, there is a little bit of a gap that allows a full 360 millimeter radiator in the front. And I did mention that you could put a radiator on the top. Actually, you can't put a radiator on the top. You only have room for fans. So the two places are in the front, and then you can put a 120 millimeter right there at the rear. So let's see, 360, 240, 280, and then a 120 or 140 in the front, but you can put a 120 millimeter radiator in the rear. I just want to make sure that I tell you the right information, and that looks correct. So now we will go ahead and finally get the motherboard in there, and we can look at our thermal testing and see how this case handles the heat. Okay, I'm kind of in the middle of the build here, and I had to do something, and I thought this would be a good opportunity to sort of show you what I did. Obviously the top of the case is completely removed. It is screwed on rather than riveted. Many of them are riveted. And I had a choice. I could either remove the D14 cooler here or leave it in position. And the problem was I can't get my hand back in here to attach this back power cable for the CPU power supply. And I really didn't want to remove the cooler, and I couldn't get my hand back in there. And since this is a shallower top of the case, it's not meant for a radiator. It's really meant for a couple of fans to be mounted in the top. There's just not that much clearance. So in order to get the cable fished through here and get it attached, I looked at the top and realized there are just a few screw holes along here, and thought, you know what, that's going to be a lot easier to just pop that top off. And it really came off quite easily. So that's the first thing I wanted to show you. The next thing is down here, this plate. I already took the screws out, but in order to get to the back screw way back in the corner, I actually had to take the fan out. So right now it's just sort of dangling in there. But to take the fan out, we'll just go ahead and pop this top cover back off. And you get to see the light bar down here anyway. In fact, I'll go ahead and cycle through the colors, and they don't show up quite as good on this particular camera, but I can tell you they are quite vivid and quite bright. And we'll cycle through all the different colors until we come back to red, which is right there. So if you use a smaller radiator like a 240 millimeter or a 280, you've got room in there. You don't have to do anything with this plate. But if you want to use a full 360 millimeter, you have to take this fan loose, and we'll set him up at the top there temporarily. And then you take the 4 screws out. When you take this plate out, this opens up the clearance here so you can get a radiator down into that area there. So a full 360 will fit in there. Smaller radiators, you don't need to take this plate off. You don't need to take the fan off. You're just fine. So we'll go ahead and attach that fan, get the cover back on, and then continue with the assembly and get ready for the thermal testing. So now we'll get a little bit of thermal imaging on the case here. And we're at idle now. We don't really have any load on the CPU, so everything should be pretty cool. Now this is the glass side, so the heat you see there is reflection. In fact, you'll probably see me walk in front of it there. Yep. So that's actually the heat from my body reflecting off of the glass. But we'll look around here at the back of the case, and the exhaust temperature is around 27, 28, 29 C, right around in there. Of course, again, this is at idle. There's no load. And there's the back of the graphics card. Not much going on there. And then the warm spot here at the bottom is, of course, the power supply. So we will go ahead and put some heat to it now with a mild overclock. One other thing we'll do here real quick. Let's take this top cover off and see what we see in here temperature wise. And I really don't expect to see anything again since we are running at idle. So there's the Noctua cooler there. Any heat you see will be coming from that zone of the case. Alright, so let's get some heat to it and see what the temperatures look like. So we have the mild overclock running now. So the CPU is working hard and we're generating some more heat. And let's run around to the back side of the case here and see what we see. So clearly we're getting some more heat from the rear exhaust fan, which is to be expected. And then graphics card's a little warmer there. And then our power supply down here at the bottom, it's putting out a little more heat too, because it's working hard to supply all of the current to the motherboard. Now let's look at this top section of the case here. We'll pull these top pieces off, and we're probably going to see a little more heat up here too, would be my guess. And we are, yep. There's the top of the D14, the Noctua D14 CPU cooler. Now if you had a couple of case fans up here at the top, you could certainly pull some more hot air and push it out the top there. Have a couple of top exhaust fans. So that's about it for the thermal testing. So the thermal numbers look pretty good for this case. A case this size, it performed right about where I expected. A couple extra fans in the top might help get a little more heat out if you want, but it does just fine the way it is. I do want to point out on top here, your power button does have this little ring, this LED color, and it changes with the case. So if I push the button here, it's a little hard to tell in this camera image. I can assure you it looks a lot better in person. But as you cycle through the colors there, you get all the different colors there. Along that trim, and then down here at the bottom, if you can see, there's some red down there. I don't know if I can really get up in there to see it, but it does show the, there you go. You can see the red light there, as well as the LED light strip. Now you can mount this light strip anywhere. It's magnetic on the back. I have it up front just so you can see it, but you can really put it anywhere in the case, and I'll cycle through the colors here on the side. And again, they really look better in person than what they're showing up here on this particular image. We'll cycle through all the different colors and then come back to red right there. Things I like about this case: I love the top vents. I like the way they are sound insulated. I like the way we have the little magnets here to keep them in place, and then the filter panels that we can also put on top here if we like. These little guys right here. I like that feature. The other thing I like is the sound insulated side panel over here on this side. I do like that. I like the way this front pops right off for easy cleaning. We have the filter panel at the bottom. We have the filter panel there at the top. Another really great idea. Well implemented. Pops back on. I like the way we can get a 360 millimeter radiator in the front here. If you want to go with liquid cooling, you can do that. And then I like the way the fan shroud, actually the power supply shroud, covers the power supply, giving you a place to stash all of your cables. Although the only bad side to these shrouds is that they cover your power supply, so if you have one you want to show off, you really can't do that. So, wrapping this up, this is a great case. Pricing is also great. Comes in around $89.95, $89.99, somewhere around there. And one more thing I forgot to talk about here. On top of the case, this panel here, we have, I don't know how well you can see it, there's a little fan symbol, there you go. That's for fan speed. You can control the case fans, the front and rear, and I believe there's at least one, if not two more sockets if you want to add a couple more fans. Over here we have the reset button. I like the way that it is not next to the power button, so you can't accidentally hit one of the wrong one when you're trying to hit one or the other. And then of course here's the RGB lighting button. But for $89.99, which is the price point that this comes in, I think this case is a real bargain. The fit, finish, quality, the RGB lighting that you get, the sound deadening panels. I like the way you have the option to put filter sections or these sound deadening panels in there that are held in there with the little magnets. I like the way this front cover, great idea, great engineering there, and a little vented section at the top there with the filter that pops out. Same thing at the bottom. We have a little vented section where the fresh air can be drawn in, and then there's a little removable filter panel. And there's your LED bar at the bottom. I think for $89.99, you're getting a great case. So don't forget to subscribe to the Overclockers Club channel. This is Chris, and thanks for watching.